This is from Jason Schreier right here. Top director at Bungie was fired after misconduct investigation. Veteran developer who worked on hit video game franchises Halo and Destiny was directing the next major title, Marathon. Chris Barrett, one of the top executives at one of the video games industry's leading studios, was fired this spring after he was accused by several female employees of inappropriate behavior, according to people familiar with the matter. Starting at Bungie Inc. in 1999, Barrett rose through the ranks as an artist and then a director on the popular Halo and Destiny franchise, and served on Bungie's board before the company was bought by Sony Group Corp for $3.6 billion in 2022. Behind the scenes, Barrett was terminated following an internal investigation in which at least 8 female employees raised complaints earlier this year that he had behaved inappropriately toward them, according to 8 people, including multiple women who reported Barrett, as well as other Bungie employees who were either involved in the investigation or spoke to the women involved. The people asked not to be named, discussing private information. The investigation found that Barrett called lower-level female employees attractive, asked them to play Truth or Dare, and made references to his wealth and power within the studio, suggesting that he could help advance their careers, according to 2 people familiar with the case. Good God, man, that's a holy shit. That's like 101 to how to, I mean, that's like if there was what you don't do. This is a guide 101 of how not to be in power or how not to be in leadership. And look. I never want to come off as like holier than thou. Okay, I am anything but. All right. So I don't want you to ever think that I'm over here casting stones. But hey, this is something that I don't do. Number one, I don't have any women that work for me, but you just don't mix work with play, man. You just don't. Like if you want to chase, we said this way back whenever Dr. Disrespect and his whole Twitch DMs and stuff like that. But like that's even mixing work a little bit with play. If you want to chase Pootie Tank, do it outside of the work environment, and definitely don't do it from a position of power. Don't do it from a position of leadership. Don't. Suggesting he could help advance people's career. In a statement to Bloomberg News, Barrett said that throughout nearly 25 years at Bungie, I feel that I've always conducted myself with integrity and been respectful and supportive of my colleagues, many of whom I consider my closest friends. I never stunned my communications to be unwanted, and I would have never thought they could possibly have made anyone feel uncomfortable. If anyone ever felt that way about their interaction with me, I am truly sorry. Sony Interactive Entertainment, Bungie's parent company, would not comment on Barrett's case specifically, but a spokesperson said the company takes all complaints of misconduct very seriously. It is our policy and practice to investigate every complaint promptly and take action based on the findings of our investigation. Over the last 2 decades, the video game industry has faced a reckoning over its reputation as a boys' club as it has grown into a $200 billion behemoth. Along the way, several top companies, including Riot Games, Ubisoft Entertainment, and Activision Blizzard, all face legal action and managerial shakeups following the allegations of misbehavior by some of their staff. Activision paid $55 million last year to settle a lawsuit brought by California that accused the Call of Duty maker of harboring a frat boy culture. And in 2021, Riot Games paid $100 million to settle a class action gender discrimination lawsuit. Bungie, founded in 1991, also dealt with these growing pains. In 2021, the gaming site IGN reported that Bungie employees said their human resources department was unwilling to respond to complaints about misbehavior at the studio. In the Barrett case, Bungie and Sony took action to remove one of the studio's most tenured employees following the complaints, a sign the video game industry may be evolving. That is actually a great sign. I would argue and say normally this, like in many places, it would stay hush hush. Christopher Barrett was credited for, forsaken. Let me also just back up here, okay? Not one person is responsible for any major expansion in Destiny. It is teams of people. And the best leaders are the ones that don't go over there and slap their name on something and say, I did this. The best leaders are the ones who look around and said, our team did this, and that team did that, and that team did that, and elevates everybody. And let me just say this, there are leaders at Bungie right now who do that. There are, and I know like we kind of like lump things together and like say like leadership is bad. I think this is one of those cases where leadership is bad. And luckily in this case, Bungie and Sony is taking the trash out here. But there are people in leadership at Bungie that do elevate their teams, man. Every one of those expansions that come out, it is teams of teams that push that thing through. Now, stories shared with Bloomberg News from the women involved or those who are familiar with the case all follow similar patterns. Barron would befriend women at the studio in various departments and then send them a barrage of text messages that blur the lines between professional and personal. In interviews, multiple women who reported Barrett said that if the advances were unwanted and they felt uncomfortable because Barrett was simply more powerful than they were at the company. Yeah, and he's married. So, I mean, that's kind of, it's a double whammy, right? Text reviewed by Bloomberg News included flirtatious messages from Barrett and requests to hang out with the women involved. Bloomberg News is not sharing specific details to avoid potentially identifying the women who reported Barrett to Human Resources. Bungie employees weren't told the circumstances behind Barrett's departure. Members of his marathon team were informed earlier this year by management that he was on a sabbatical. According to the people familiar, some later discovered that his company accounts had been disabled. But there you go, guys. That's why Christopher Barrett is no longer a part of the marathon team. That's why there was a shakeup in leadership, and Joe Ziegler is taking over on the marathon side. And that's why we also did not, because everybody was saying, okay, if Joe Ziegler is taking over marathon, then why is Christopher Barrett not working on Destiny 2? Well, that's why. Yeah, this is kind of like the textbook example of how not to be in management. Isn't it weird that only after these layoffs, these actors just start reigning most of the time? Yeah, I mean, it's normally like people that are broken away from the company, and probably since they're not working, they probably feel comfortable to bring some of these things up. He was fired in spring. Yeah, but this is not something that like Bungie's going to be like, hey, so this week at Bungie, yeah, we have a new exotic that just came out. Oh, and we fired Christopher Barrett, a longtime Destiny director who's now on Marathon, for sending messages, text messages, and using his position of power to flirt with women. You know where I'm coming from? That's just not something that's going to be in a TWAB. But let me just be clear. First up, I think it's great that Bungie took action on this, and Sony. And two, I don't want you guys to think like, well, if Christopher Barrett's like this, then the whole studio must, you know what I mean? Like, how many other people are like this? I'm not saying that there aren't other people at the studio that could potentially be like this. It's just from my experience, at least the folks that I've seen that, not that I'm just saying from my experience, way, you know, when we went before the final shape, my experience was that the folks that are in leadership are people that lift up their teams, at least the ones I've seen, and are good for us as gamers as well. Again, I also want to just mention, like I'm not coming all from a place of holier than thou. Y'all understand where I'm coming from, right? If you come across a girl and you make an advancement and she says, no, I'm not interested. And you're like, all right. And you go on with your merry way, completely fine. Dude, I don't got to sing. And vice versa. If a girl comes across a guy and makes the move and doesn't work, fine. You know what I mean? Good luck to you. Best of luck, whatever. But you can't do it from a position of power. You can't do it from a, hey, you want a promotion? Heard you're trying to buy a house this year. You know what I'm saying? Again, it's a bad look. I don't want everyone at Bungie to be painted with the same brush here, okay? You get some bad apples, they dealt with the bad apple, they put it out in a discussion. Hopefully, you know, more complaints. I do think that there are good people at Bungie that are monitoring this thing. And I think the folks that I've met that are in leadership, that when I say like game director type roles and stuff like that, they are great fucking people who elevate their teams. And I'm just saying, like, it's kind of like the kind of people that I would probably work for, is what I'm saying. So I say, if you're in a position of leadership, you just have to be. And look, I remember one time I waited tables for like not even 3 months, maybe 4 months, somewhere around 3-4 months. I waited tables. This is years and years ago. I was in college, and I remember I had two different bosses, two different managers of the restaurant. One was like the coolest fucking dude you could imagine, and he was a family guy, but he fucking loved to make jokes. He was reasonable and never inappropriate. Never fucking inappropriate. And then like we even went. There was like one time it was that summer, we went on a beer float trip. What a float trip is like you go to a river. You get a raft out, a little floaty raft, and you drink beer and you just float down the river. That's a float trip. And he was out there drunk as a skunk, but never misbehaved, completely appropriate. And what was even better was, even though he was many years our senior, when 8:00 p.m. rolled around, he fucking picked his beer up and said, good night, and went to bed in the hotel. And we didn't see him till the next day. Never inappropriate. Our second manager that was also with us was inappropriate. There were times that you could just tell, like, he'd make a few stabs at some of the hostesses, you know what I mean? Or some of the waitresses, which just made things a bit uncomfortable. And so, again, if he was just like maybe a waiter, completely different, that's fine. Hell, I was messing with one of the hostesses, but that was okay because we were on the same level. You know what I mean? I wasn't messing with the hostess saying, hey, you want more hours? You want more evenings next week? You know where I'm coming from? I wasn't doing that. But the managerial guy, him messing with the girls. That's a bigger problem. You know where I'm coming from? Those were my two experiences with those bosses. And I could just tell you, even from a guy's perspective, the first boss was just so much better to work for, man. It just wasn't any personal stuff. And it was like, it's amazing. It's like in all these other facets of his life, he was a, you know, a good family man, but still loved to have, you know, a joke here and there, and was just a ton of fun to be around and work with, and never inappropriate. Yet the other manager who was inappropriate at time, had all these other issues, was not fun to work for, made everything extremely personal. You see where I'm coming from this? It's in one area, if you're a certain way, it's amazing how you'll be that shitty way in all these other facets. I think the worst case scenario here would have been if Bungie tried to sweep this under the rug and then still kept him in a position as game director and tried to hush everything up, and you know, then that shit came out. You know where I'm coming from? I mean, it's again, it's not a good look for, but no place is perfect, man. No place is perfect, dude. I wish we lived in that world, but I'll see the allegations come out. I mean, it's like every day I hear some stuff come out, you know? Rule of thumb, know your audience. You could be inappropriate as long as the people around you know it is a joke, not serious. There's, you know, I'm gonna be honest. If I was in the, you know, professional world today, I wouldn't even do it with people that I really trust. You know, even if I'm like, I know they know that I would be joking, I wouldn't even be, you don't even want to, you know what I'm coming from? I just think you shouldn't, just to be safe, man, just don't do it. You know, it's pretty risky. But yeah, I would say anyone you work with, just be cautious. Just be extremely cautious. Just be dead inside, then nothing comes across as weird. No, it doesn't have to be like that. Guys, you can have harmonious relationships with the people that you work with, and even friendships, you know. You don't have to be like, I'm a steel case of zero emotion, nothing happens. No, you don't have to be that way. Just interact. And yeah, do your shit and go home. I feel like Bungie's had enough bad press already. This is something that they did address, or they have addressed, and just leave it at that. They addressed it, and hopefully there are systems in place at Bungie that anyone else that feels like they're dealing with someone who's being inappropriate can go to them and let them know. I suspect that there are some individuals definitely though that are there that can easily be approached about this stuff.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.